So the previous video looked at service frequency patterns of the Sydney Trains network and noted how they compared against those of the Washington, D.C. metro system, which is a rapid transit network, as well as the Long Island Railroad, which is a commuter rail network. And we found that, on average, they more resembled those of a rapid transit system. In this series of videos, what we're going to look at is the patterns of ridership of the Sydney Trains network and see how these patterns compare with both rapid transit systems as well as commuter rail systems. Now, ridership can be measured in many ways, but in this video, we're going to focus on station exits and station entries. That's how many people exit a station and how many people enter it. Now remember, during the morning commute period, most people will be coming from these outer localities around here and coming into the central business district. So they'll be entering stations on the periphery and they'll be exiting stations in the central business district. In the evening commute period, they'll be entering stations in the central business district and exiting stations on the periphery, usually the same stations that they entered in the morning. Now those are the typical commuters. And remember, as I stated in the introductory video, all systems, whether commuter rail systems or rapid transit systems, serve these typical commuters fairly well. What we want to see is how well the Sydney Trains network serves commuters and riders who don't follow these typical commuting patterns. In this video, we're going to be focusing on the number of passengers exiting these central business district stations. So, in particular, Central Station here and Town Hall Station here. These are the two busiest stations of the Sydney Trains network. And we're going to see how many of them exit outside of the typical 6 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. morning commute period. Because remember, your typical commuters will be exiting stations in the central business district during this period. We want to see how many people exit outside of this period. And we'll also compare these numbers to analogous numbers of the Long Island Railroad network. So here I've pulled up a visual provided by the New South Wales Government Bureau of Transport Statistics. And this visual shows the number of station exits in a 24-hour period. And these numbers are for 2006. And the only reason I picked 2006 was because the latest numbers that are available for the Long Island Railroad are those in 2006 as well. So I wanted to have an apples-to-apples comparison. Okay, so these are the stations here in the Central Business District. This is Central Station with an average of 76,660 exits per day. And this is actually on a typical weekday. And here's Town Hall Station with an average of 75,070 station exits on an average weekday in 2006. So let's look at how many of these take place during the 6 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. period. So for Central Station, out of the 76,000 or so exits that took place over the 24-hour period, 34,000, just under half, took place during the morning commute period. And for Town Hall, 36,390 took place during the morning commute period. So let's see what fractions we have here. For Central Station, we have 76,660 over 24 hours, and over the morning commute period, 34,550. Pull up a scientific calculator. We have 34,550 divided by 76,660. So we see about 45% of the station exits took place during the morning peak period. So about 55% took place outside of this period. Now for Town Hall Station, over a 24-hour period in 2006, on a typical weekday, you'd have 75,070 exits. During the morning peak period, this would be 36,390. So 36, let's look at the numbers again. 36,390 divided by 75,070. So 48% or 48.5% took place during the morning peak period. So about 51.5% of the exits were outside of this morning peak period. Now let's see how these numbers compare with those of the Long Island Railroad system. In the Long Island Railroad system, there's only one station inside the central business district, and that's Penn Station. So Penn Station, during an average weekday in 2006, had 110,029 exits. You can see here, let me make this bigger, that 86,379 of them took place during the morning peak period. So let's pull up the calculator and see what fraction that is. 86,379 divided by 110,029. So here we see 78.5% roughly took place during the morning peak period. So that would mean only 21.5% or so took place outside of this period. So we can see that far more of the passengers exiting Penn Station, which is the only station in the central business district of New York City, exit during the morning peak period when compared to the two major stations in the central business district of Sydney, which are Town Hall Station and Central Station. Again, back to the map. Here's Central Station, here's Town Hall Station. So you can see there are far more exits outside of these hours as a fraction of the total number of exits in Sydney. And this is further support for the claim that the Sydney Trains network functions more as a rapid transit network than it does a commuter rail network, at least compared to rapid transit and commuter rail systems in North America.